Good, Andy. Should we go ahead?
Yeah, let's start. So, good morning, everybody. So, at least for us, it's good morning. To our guided onboarding session today. I'm Andreas Willich, Community Manager of SpecFlow, and with me today is Matthias Rapp, our product owner. Short about the session. This is a hands-on session. So Matthias, you follow me. What we're doing. Please use the Q&A tool for questions. This makes us easier to see what's already answered or not. Please don't use the chat for questions. We're monitoring the whole webinar, the questions. If the question is relevant to the task I'm currently doing, we will answer them. All the other questions will be answered at the end in a separate Q&A part of the webinar. Are we supposed to hear you from Zoom up or we must? You should hear us in Zoom, Pavel.
Let me answer him.
The webinar is recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards, so you can also have their look. Good. So before we start, we have a quick poll for you. So quickly want to know if you have already used SpecFlow before or not. So could quickly answer them and then we start. Oh, we have lots of newcomers here. Okay. Quickly share with you. So 2/3 are newcomers to SpecFlow. So cool to see you here, and I hope you enjoy and learn something what you will see. So let's start. So what we will do today is we have on our website, on our documentation, getting step-by-step getting started guide, and this we will follow this today, these 11, 12 steps. I post the link to it in the chat that you can also follow there if you need to. For me, so I'm here on a freshly installed Windows 10 virtual machine. Visual Studio 2019 is installed, but that's it. And the first step, what we do is when we start with SpecFlow is that we install the Visual Studio extension. Okay, I see already a question about, is there a problem if you already installed .NET 5? No. SpecFlow supports since 3.5, .NET 5. We released this 1 day, 2 days after the launch of .NET 5. Everything is supporting there. Today, we only support the getting started is for .NET Core 3.1, but makes no difference. Good. When we start Visual Studio 2019 to install the extensions, we don't now create a project. We say continue without code. To install the extension, we go to extensions, manage extensions, select here online, and then simply search for SpecFlow. And then you can find here, let's make it a little bit bigger, the SpecFlow Visual Studio 2019 add-in. Press download. Now it's downloaded, and now important is it only gets installed when you restart Visual Studio. So we need to close this again. After a moment, this window is popping up, the VSIX installer. this installs the Visual Studio extension. You say modify, and it's
While this is loading, there's a question again in the Q&A, whether SpecFlow can be used with Linux.
Yes, sure. SpecFlow can be used on Linux. So if you are using SpecFlow in a .NET Core, .NET 5 environment, you can use SpecFlow on Linux, Windows, and Mac. I'm not 100% sure about Mono support. So if you have still full framework and use Mono on Linux, I'm not sure if everything. We don't have it in our test metrics. We on Linux and Unix we only support. So we only test .NET Core, and there this works. And with VS Code, you can develop on Linux, Mac, what you want. Good. Now we have installed the extension. Let's quickly check this. Start Visual Studio. Continue without code. Manage extensions. Now under installed, we have here SpecFlow for Visual Studio 2019. Cool. And this was already our first step in a step-by-step getting started line. So let's go to the next one. Sorry. First, before we can write some tests, we need something to test. So we will create an application, and we call this always the system under test, the SUT. So and for our getting started guide, we simply create a calculator library. So we say file, new project. Then we select, we want a class library for .NET Core, C#. I have it already here on the left side, but you can simply search here, class library. And then you need to wait a little bit. The search in Visual Studio template is not the fastest. And then you have a long list here and search it here. And here it is, class library.NET Core. Next. We call it, in this example, it's give it the name, the SpecFlow calculator, and create the project. So it creates a standard C# project. We have the class 1 CS, and what we do is we replace this class with our test application code we want to test. So we name this calculator. Yes, and then in the wait, that was wrong. I paste the code of our calculator here. I'll keep it open for a moment and that you can type it yourself. And in the meantime, I'll simply start the build to see that the build was successful. Good. Give me a moment to catch up with the code. Good. And this was already step 2 on our getting step-by-step getting started guide. And so we have our calculator application, and the next thing we need to do is to create a project for SpecFlow to write in our tests. So, and for creating a SpecFlow project, we made it easy and provide a project template for it. So you can say add new project on solution. And then you have here already see SpecFlow project. You can again search for it. And we choose this, say next. We give it a name. The name is SpecFlowCalculator.specs. Let's say create. And after that, we get a dialog where we can choose which .NET framework we want, so .NET Core 3.1 or .NET Framework 4.8, and which test framework. In our case now, we take .NET Core 3.1 and the SpecFlow Plus Runner. But we also have here XUnit, NUnit, MS Test. But in this step-by-step getting started guide, we use the SpecFlow Plus Runner. So let's create this project. Okay, question, is it possible to change runner later? Yes, it is. The runners are simply, which unit test framework you use is simply done via NuGet package. So in that case, we use specrun.specflow as NuGet package, but there's also the specflow.NUnit, specflow.mstest, and specflow.xunit package. And depending on which you want, you have to change this line to the other ones. Support for, does it support .NET Framework 4.8 and .NET Core 3.1 only? No, only our wizard has currently these options because this was the most used versions. SpecFlow is supporting .NET Framework after 4.6.2. It's supporting .NET Core 2.1, .NET Core 3.1, and .NET 5. You find this all in our document on our documentation side under SpecFlow. You have here under requirements, we have all the supported version listed. I put this into the chat. Good. In the meantime, the project was created, and yeah, that was step 3, create a SpecFlow project. And now we start, we will execute the first time some tests in the next step, in step 4. First, that we can test our test application from here, we need to add a project reference. So we say add project reference and select the SpecFlow calculator. Okay. All fine. And so this is set up. Let's build it quickly. So that works. And now I have already here the Test Explorer, and you see something popped up. You can find the Test Explorer under Test Explorer, that this pops open, this panel. And yeah, let's try and see what happens if we press Run All. And nothing happens. Okay. Why did nothing happen? So we are using the SpecFlow Plus Runner, and for using it, you need to activate it on your machine. So SpecFlow Plus Runner is our specialized test runner for SpecFlow. So our is from the SpecFlow team, and to use it, you need to have a SpecFlow account and need to activate this. And the first time, you need the activation only make it once for your machine. When you run it, you see here in the test output some information that, yeah, you need the activation is checked, and you need to sign up. And this is really easy. So you simply copy this link here and open it in a browser. You get the welcome screen. You need to sign in. We're currently using support Microsoft accounts. You can use your corporate Microsoft account or your personal account. In this case, I'm using my corporate account. I already did this once, so I have here the accounts. You have to enter your email address and log in. So I select this one. Then I get a two-factor authentication message I have to approve. So, and I'm done. You will probably get one additional screen where we have to select some. First, you give us permission to get basic information, so first name and last name, email address, and then there will be a second screen with some other informations and terms of conditions, and so this is only need to do only once. I did this already, so I can't show you these steps. They are on the documentation. You can see them. It needs about 30 seconds. And after that, we are finished here. We can go back to Visual Studio and press here Run All. And now we should see that we get a result, and it's yellow.
Andy, there is actually two questions in the chat right now.
Yeah, okay.
One is it possible to keep the test framework separate from the application under test code?
Yeah, sure. That's what we are doing. We have here the application, and here's our test code. So on a project level is separated. The question is if you want to do it more separate, having separate solutions or so. So what does separation in that case, in that special case, mean? Perhaps if you can clarify a little bit the question.
And there is actually, so there's a follow-on question. Can it be in separate solutions, Andy?
Sure, it can. It depends how you automate your application. So in our example, we are calling then directly the APIs here. So it's easier to have here in the same solution, but you can reference any other DLL as normally. And if you do black box testing with Selenium or Appium, it's sure, separate solution doesn't matter. You reference with Selenium in black box, you don't need to reference anything at all, or you reference the outcome from the other solution.
We're getting even more specific, Andy, on the same question. It will be calling a qRPC service from an IoT device.
It will be calling a qRPC.
So that's the specific automation use case here, I think.
So yeah, let's answer this at the end. I think after going through the step-by-step guide, it's more clear what happens within SpecFlow. The other question about the enterprise level from build server not connected to the internet is the runner doesn't need an activation on build server. We detect if you're running on a build server, and then you don't need an activation. You need only the activation on your developer machine.
And I also answered a question related to this in writing that you guys can read in the answers. This was about what happens when the trial period of the runner ends, and there is no trial period. Good news. So it's always fully featured and fully free. So feel free to use it.
Good. Then let's back to our step-by-step guide. We are currently already at step 6. So the activation was step 5. And now we write our first bindings. So we saw we are here skipped, and when we have here then the calculator and already a scenario. So out of the project templates, we already create a scenario with one feature file with one scenario to test, and to test the calculator. And what we do is now we have, this is Gherkin, this is the language Gherkin. And what we need to do now is to define what is happening if there is such a sentence given the first number is 50. So what needs to be done? And we can simply we make here right click and then say go to definition or press F12. And then we jump to our binding class or step definition class. You can see a step definition class is because it's a public class with the binding attribute. And this class has multiple methods, and all these methods have also attributes with the text. And let's put these quickly side by side, and let's make here a little bit space. So we have here the feature file with given the first number is 50, and from this string here, the first number is 50, and here this string, this connects this line with this method. And in this special case, we also have a parameter that's here. To be exact, these are regular expressions. You put here a regular expression that matches this here, and then this method is called. And we have here normal.NET code. So let's try to automate our application or our calculator. The first thing we need is to have an instance of this calculator. So let's create one. The calculator class, we name it calculator equals, and in this case, because it's so simple, we can simply instantiate the class here directly. If you have a more complex application, this isn't probably not so easy, and you need the I container and so on and so on. But here we have now our instance, and now we can implement this first step. You can remove this and say calculator dot that the first number equals number. And when we, close this video and let's open the test explorer. Let's run this again. Let's see what happens. Okay, still yellow. Let's have a look at the additional output. We see here some general logging, and then we have here our given the first number is 50 step, and we see, okay, this is done, this is executed. And the second number is 70. This is pending, so this is not implemented yet, so there is no way that SpecFlow knows what to do. And this is part of step 7. We will bind the rest of the steps and get it, hopefully, the test to something else than yellow. So what we can, we jump again from the binding, from the feature to the binding. So given the second number, that's easy. So calculator second number equals number. And then we have here the other two, the when and the then step. So for the when step, that's where we add the number. So this is calculator dot add. But what is here is the add method. It returns the result. It doesn't store it in the class, it simply returns. So we need to store the result for our own. So let's make a field. Let's add a field, private int result, and assign this field here. And with that, we can save the state from this step to this step. And then the result should be, that's where we are doing our assertions, our verifications. And we in the SpecFlow team really like the class library called Fluent Assertions. And with that, it's really easy to write assertions. And what you need to do is you need to add it as a using statement here. When we created the project, there was some small checkbox to, if you want fluent assertions, we added this, so we added it for you automatically. And now we can write result, the actual stuff should be the expected one, and this is result. And let's rename this to expected result, and let's rename this to actual result to make it easier readable. Good, let's build.
Okay, while you're building, Andy, there's a couple of questions, I think. So there is one that you probably answered by showing us this, but it is it easy to generate the step methods, which you've just done? So I think
no, I didn't really do it. So this is already there, but I can quickly show this. So if you don't, let's comment out this. So it's not here. And what you see is now in the feature file, this is suddenly, it's subtle, but it's violet. So this indicates that this step is not bound. And when you try now to go to step definition, you get a pop-up with a skeleton code and a question if you want to paste it in the clipboard. Then we say yes. We have it here in the clipboard, a skeleton code. What you can also do is, if there are multiples, in the context menu, you have here generate step definitions, which is not high DPI aware. Where you see, okay, these steps are all not bound, so how to generate them. Can here say also copy methods to clipboard. And you see it also, let's run this once here. We see it, no, we catch before the not implemented exception. You see it also in the output of the test if there's nothing bound and no other exceptions happens before. So we support you with generating these steps, but be aware they are not perfect. That is the best guess what we can try. So if there is a number, that's for us a parameter. If you have in your normal sentence some numbers, you will get some wrong parameters. So it's always a best guess what we are doing. You have always to check this if this is correct for your case.
Good, thank you, Andy. And let me see if this is a question that we can already answer or more a comment. I don't think it's a question yet. So let's keep going. I think yeah, I think Victor is just providing a couple of comments, but there might be future questions about dependency injections and so on and so forth.
Yeah, okay. Let's make this afterwards.
Yes.
Good. During answering questions, I'll let the tests run, and we see it's now red because the method operation is not implemented. We get a not implemented exception here, a nice stack trace. And when we click here, we see, okay, our add method is not implemented. This throws the error. And this brings us to steps 8 now already to fix the implementation. And yeah, I think it's not yeah, that's easy. So return first number plus second number. And let's run the tests. And they are green. Yay. And when we have now a look into our output again, you see for all the steps here that they're done with executing. So everything is executed. And yeah, and everything is fine. Everything is green. Cool. And that was the quick step 8. So step 9 is adding living documentation. So you have this quick explain about living documentation is. You have here these feature files which describe how your application works, but they're on your source control system in Visual Studio. And yeah, it's accessible for developer and most of testers, but other share and stakeholders like product owner, that's not their world. So how do we get these to them? And for that, there's living documentation, and we can generate this rather easy. So what we need is, first, I need a command line. Let's make this a little bit bigger. To install a command line tool from us. So you need to install the SpecFlow Plus Living Doc CLI tool. And this will probably, yeah, I have this already installed on this machine. If you have already installed this, you can switch install with update to get the latest version. But I quickly show you how the install process works. So it's remove, no, it's not remove, uninstall. Command. So if you install this, you get the message. You can now invoke the tool using the following command, living doc. If this is a .NET global tool, if this is your first global tool that you install, you need to restart your command prompt. If not, it can't find it. That's a limitation of .NET global tools. So, but I did it. And what I do now is let's switch to the folder where I have the sources. And let's switch here. And then we go in the bin. So we know we are here. So quick check, we are solution level. We go into the specs folder. And there in the bin debug folder. And we have the .NET Core app. So there's all the stuff. And what we can now do is use the command living doc. Then say test assembly. Give him the SpecFlow calculator.specs DLLS parameter. And then let's add also -t test execution JSON. This JSON file was generated during runtime. When we execute this, we generate a living documentation file, so living doc HTML. So let's open this. And what we have now is here a standalone single HTML file with our feature files. You have here on the left side your tree with the scenario. We have some cool features. With Markdown support, we show test execution results. and so on. We have some analytics here. You see how many scenarios and features and steps were executed. You would see here if you had some unused step definitions. That's cool. If you want to know more about this, we have on our YouTube, we had last week a webinar about this and all the features. It's on our YouTube channel, the recording for that. So watch it to see all the cool features that SpecFlow plus Living Doc provides you. And this was step 9, and now, yeah, the first finish line is here. I think this is a good point for a second poll, or Matthias?
Yeah, I think so too, Andy. Let's pull it up. Do you want, or should I?
I'm already launching it.
Go for it.
So we would like to hear where you heard from us. So how did you find SpecFlow? So that would be interesting for us. Good. I prepared the next step in the meantime. There is. Good. Thanks for sharing. So quickly share for you that you also know it. So word of mouth and searching. Good. Okay, before I continue, there's a question about Living Doc. As product manager, do I need to run the command line to see the latest Living Doc? This was now here locally. Normally you generate the Living Doc in your CI pipeline, and then it's done automatically for you. There are two products under the name SpecFlow plus Living Doc. There's first the SpecFlow plus Living Doc generator. That's the one that I showed you with the command line interface. But we also have SpecFlow plus Living Doc Azure DevOps, which is completely integrated in Azure DevOps. Yeah, and for the generator, where is it? Specs bin debug. So it's here. It's the Living Doc HTML. It's one HTML file that you can then put on within your CI pipeline wherever you want. If it's sending per Teams, by email, by Slack, putting up on a web server. Your imagination is the limit what to do with the file and how to share it with the rest of your team or other sharing stakeholders.
Most users that we see are basically publishing it to some kind of web server where the HTML is hosted. So you basically just go to a website where after every build you have the most recent Living documentation to see.
Yeah. So I lost my VM. Here's my VM. Why is it on a different one? So everything back there what I wanted. Good. Two quick steps. So want to add in the stepping step guide. We are now at step 11. Where we have also an example. We add an additional scenario to this. I'm copying here. That's about subtracting two numbers. And you see here again that we have a new step when the two numbers are subtracted, that it's purple, which is not bound. And as I already showed it with F12 or go to binding, these pop-ups popped up. Then let's go to our binding and paste this here. And then we can do in a truly test-driven development cycle. We have first our test and now implement the logic. So we can say actor result equals calculator dot subtract. This method is not here, so we can control dot in Visual Studio say generate method calculator dot subtract, and then jump into it if it's here. And we can let's build first and see our scenario on the left side. Let's run it. The first is green, the second will fail because not implemented again. And let's say return first number minus second number. And everything is green. Cool. And this was step 11 and step 12 of our getting started guide. Good. And we have already some questions about the steps. What is the scope of steps? So the scope of steps is global. The idea is that you define your binding once and can reuse it in every feature file that you have in your project. That it means the same thing in every feature file. You want, you know then what it's doing, and this is doing all the same thing in every scenario what you write, because you couldn't remember, okay, in this feature file it does this, but the same sentence in the other feature file does that. This, you can't remember this. By default, the steps are global for all steps, for all feature files. There are some possibilities to reduce the scope of a binding, but this is very, so you should, I think, think twice about it if you really want to do this or not. Hope this answered this. Good. And with that, yeah, we are in the Q&A section of this webinar. So we have one from Victor open with the gRPC services IoT devices. So what you saw is, where's my, with SpecFlow connects your feature files with the bindings, and here you have .NET code. You can automate everything here, code here, everything what you can do in .NET. If you have a gRPC client for this service for .NET, you can use it. You can use Selenium, you can Appium, you see we use Fluent as citations. You can use any .NET library, any .NET code to automate your scenarios. There are no limitations. As long as it's executable by .NET, you can use it in SpecFlow. So that's up to you how to call your gRPC service. Good, that's. So gRPC. So
first here.
So let's go in the order. Is the scenario background that will set scene for running particular feature files? Yes. In Gherkin, you have here a background. You can define here a background for the full feature file, and have here the same. Use here the same steps as in the scenarios, and this background is executed before every scenario. So it's not only executed once for these two, it's executed for each of them. That's the background. There's also, if you need other stuff, there's also some hooks available in SpecFlow. Where you can hook into the different events. There are hooks here. So we have some before test run, so always before and after test run, the full feature, the scenario, a scenario block, so given when then, and before each step. Good, that was this. Feature context current was obsolete. Why we still generate the method with it? Because we didn't update the code that's generating this stuff, and so it's there. We are working on it to get to a point where we can exchange this code. It's obsolete, but it's still there and it works. You simply get a warning that you have, sadly you need to do some additional work to change this to context injection. At the moment, we are only a small team and a lot of things to do, but SpecFlow is open source, so it's always a way to help us.
There's actually a good opportunity coming up, Andy, isn't it?
Yeah, I forgot the shameless plug for this. So if you want to contribute to SpecFlow, there is beginning next year the ideal opportunity. So we are running next year at the beginning, starting January 12th for 2 weeks, open source iteration for 2 weeks, where the whole team is being a mentor for new and existing contributors to SpecFlow. We will help you to get started. We will help you to get your changes to SpecFlow and unto the point that you can create a pull request. And in the rest of the time, we go to the other issues on GitHub. So if you're interested in that, please join us. There, all these contributions you made during these times are applicable for our SpecFlow Community Hero program. We just also launched this. Every month we select up to 18 community contribution, which will become a SpecFlow Community Hero. We have the different categories where you can contribute. And one of the perks you get is you get a $25 Amazon voucher if you're a community hero in a month. If you get a hero in all 6 categories in the same month, you get extra $50. So perhaps this is interesting for you. I put also this link into the chat. Good. But back to questions. How do you provide dependency injection test fixtures? SpecFlow itself has a dependency injection framework internally and uses it also. The feature we call the feature context injection, and we see it in this case here. So we have in this example how you can use it. You have 2 binding classes, and to share state between them, you can create a separate class, person data here, and via context injection, or via constructor, you get in both step classes the same instance of person data, and so you can share state between the steps. So there is already some integrated. You simply get it via constructor, and we have also some. This is the internal stuff. It's called body, but you can also we have where is it in there? No. Integrations. We have also some integration to use Autofag or Castle Windsor with this context injection together. I hope this answered the question, Victor. So why we do need scenario context? Scenario context is best example here in the documentation. First, it has the ability to also store data. This was a way also to share data between steps. Still available, but context injection is the better way. This is a very untype safe way to exchange state between steps. That's the one feature of the scenario context. The other features are simply information, scenario info, to get the tags, what's on a scenario, to get the title, and so on. And you get also in which scenario block or in which step you are on the scenario context. And similar is the feature context to it, but on a feature level than on a scenario level. Test execution is not generated. Any hints on this? In Visual Studio, everything is fine. It's green. Matthias, I think you mean the test execution JSON file. One thing why it couldn't perhaps not generated is, are you on the latest version of the SpecFlow Plus Living Doc plugin? Because this is rather new, and you need the latest version that the test execution JSON is generated. If it's still not there, please open a support request or a GitHub issue about this. Victor, can you change scope of the injected context? No, this is always in the when you work with context injection in your step, this is always scenario scoped. So all the instances are, every scenario gets its own instances. Yeah, that's the quick answer. The run level, feature level, scenario level, step level. Okay, this is one question. Yeah, with this, it's on scenario level, and so you can get a new server for each scenario from the start. Yeah, that's the quick one. There's some advanced stuff where you can get also something on feature level, but this is now it's a more advanced topic here. This would it's going too deep now for this webinar. If you have query, but this is a good point for the next shameless plug. We have a community forum online. It's available under, I don't have to support SpecFlow.org. We have here some FAQ entries, and then here are the community forums. And we have here first the general discussion forum, and this is the best place to ask questions on how to use SpecFlow, how you can automate something together with SpecFlow. There the community is also, the team looks into this and provides answers and hints how you can do the stuff. And also here we have our feature requests list. So if you're missing some features or simply want to give us more feedback what is important for you from the already requested features, this is the place for you. You can create new feature requests, and you can also vote them. And our product owner are using this information as input for planning the next features and the prioritization. Good. And what we also created, because I'm already here, so we have also for today already created here a post in the forum. If you have additional if you want to have give us additional feedback, we have also here a form, or have questions to the getting started step-by-step guideline. If you have some problems, this is the place. Good.
There is one last question from Victor.
Yeah. With a plan around SpecFlow on Linux, VM, and CLIs, this is possible. Yes, this is absolutely possible if your project is running on .NET Core or .NET 5. Good.
Okay, I think that wraps it up, Andy.
Yes. So two links again. So again, as mentioned, the recording of this webinar goes up on YouTube. In our YouTube channel, you find there also a lot of other cool videos. You find there all. We stream once a week for 2 hours, and I'll show you different ways how to use SpecFlow with Selenium, Appium, RESTjob, and so. All the stream recordings are on our YouTube channel, and a lot more. And there are also more to come. So please subscribe to get notifications there when we upload new videos. And yeah, I forgot the Twitch link and the feedback form that I already showed you. So thanks for joining. Again, my name is Andreas Willich. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find SpecFlow on our website via Twitter and LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks for joining. And we have then now at the end a quick survey, just two questions. I think would be cool if you could give feedback to improve SpecFlow and to improve also webinars for the future. So I wish you a nice rest of the day, and happy holidays and a happy new year.
Yes.
Perhaps see us in a future webinar.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.